So, yeah, your x minus 1 equals 9, x equals 10. I'm sure that didn't take you that long to cross multiply that. Question 2, I always like to line them up, one over the top of the other one, so that I can add down the columns, negative 1 plus 12i. You know, it's really that easy. It's not meant to be difficult. You're really just adding the real values together and the imaginary values together. Why do you think people foil that? Why do you think kids foil that? Even though it's addition, why do you think they foil it? What do they see in this problem that makes them think foil? They see parentheses, right? Parentheses mean foil. No, they don't. If you're multiplying, sure, fantastic. But okay, so we get to Saturday afternoon. Armand sent M text messages every hour for 5 hours, so that's how much he sent. Tyrone sent 4 hours worth of messages each hour P, so total would be doing what? Multiplying, adding. Hopefully you know that's adding. So that gets me that answer there. If I go too fast through a question, just let me know. Holler at me. You might rearrange the equation. If writing 108 minus 23d throws you off and you don't know what you're looking at, maybe you're more comfortable with the whole y equals mx plus b, knowing that b is the y-intercept. What is the meaning of that y-intercept? Kathy will complete the repairs within 108 days. Kathy starts each week with 108 phones to fix. That's it right there, isn't it? She's starting with 108 phones to fix every week, and then goes down from there. Okay, so oops, that's. So if we distribute the negative all the way through, this term right here is going to become positive. That's why I rewrote it down here. Underneath the other one that's exactly like it. In other words, I'm putting them in like columns. Okay, then when I distributed the negative to the next one, 3xy squared, it became negative, but I put it in the same column with the like term there. And then when you distribute the negative to the last one, it becomes positive, and I put it in its own column. And of course, what do we notice with that middle column? Gone, right? Those disappeared. So we have 2 of these x squared y's, and we have 2 of these xy squareds. That's it. Distribute the negative and add like terms. I think putting them in vertical columns like that helps you focus your attention better. Okay. So when you see something like this, how much increase inches each year? That sounds like slope. Something per year. So when you look up there, the slope is 3. So that would be 3 inches per year that we're dealing with. Some of their questions are going to be just that easy. Okay. Remind me how to solve this, please. How do you solve this? What do you do to both sides? I should back up and say, let's solve for x. Otherwise, you're probably looking at me like, well, what the heck are you asking me to solve for? It's already solved for y. Alright, so, yeah, you caught me there. Let's solve this thing for x. What do you do to both sides? Multiply by the reciprocal, right? Because the 2's cancel, the 3's cancel, and I get x by itself, right? Okay, so why the heck is he showing me this example right here? What does this phrase, gives P, mean? Which of the following gives P? What do they want me to do? They want me to solve this thing for P. Now, it's kind of obvious from the 4 answers since they're all P equals. But, that's the phrase. Now, you don't understand maybe why I gave you that previous example? Well, you have a fraction. I'm not saying it's not a nasty fraction, but you have a fraction times P. What are you going to do to get rid of it? What did you do up there to get rid of a fraction and move it to the other side? You told me to multiply by the reciprocal. Okay, that's really all we're doing is multiplying by the reciprocal. So if you take that fraction and flip it over and move it to the other side, don't you get this one down here? It's multiplying by the reciprocal. That's it. This isn't, I understand you're looking at it going, oh my goodness, there's words and what, nasty looking formula. Don't get caught up in that. Focus on what they're asking you to do. It's really not as daunting sometimes as they make it out. Okay? Okay. Great question. I know deep down in your heart you want to know what A is and you want to know what B is, but we don't care. You don't even have enough information to figure out what A and B are. So, one of the properties of proportions that a lot of you guys forget is that when it says A over B equals 2 over 1, what is B divided by A? The property of proportions says I can flip that side as long as I do what to the other side? If I flip this side, what am I going to do to the other side? Yep. Okay, so why did I do that? Because I noticed in the question they wanted to know something about B over A. Not only do they want to know that, but I know they want to know 4 times that amount. Well, guess what? I know that if you multiply one side of an equation by 4, you better do it to the other side. So what's half of 4? Yes, that's the answer, 2. All I had to realize was that you flip both sides and multiply by 4. End of story. Some of these things I know you haven't thought of in a long time, so that's why we're trying to remind you about as many as possible. Okay? Did you eliminate? Or did you just start plugging in answers until you found it? Plugged in answers? Yeah, I figured most of you probably would do that. That'd be the fastest way to figure this out. I can see, obviously, that they're trying to trick me by flipping things around there, so be careful for that. But what did it end up being when you plug them in? It can't be A. It was B. 6. Oh, yeah, I flipped it around myself. Yes. Get it right. So 9. Yeah, okay, that does work. Yeah, you're just plugging them in. 3 times 3 minus 4 times 8 plus 4, 23. And 2 times negative 8 minus 3 is negative 18. That is the fastest way. If you're trying to speed this up, obviously elimination would be your other alternative. What What do we know about the beef and the chicken? What are we going to do with these two equations because we know something about these? What do we know about the beef and the chicken? They're equal. So we can set them equal to each other. 2.35 plus 0.25x equals 1.75 plus 0.4x. Then we're going to start moving things around, right? We're going to move that to this side. We're going to move that to this side. So that would give me 0.15x. 235. Take away $1.75. I think that's about 60 cents. All we're doing is subtracting those things and then division. So we get x equals 4. Wait a second, I don't see that answer in the answer choices. So remember, x is 4 weeks. We just figured out that it was 4 weeks until they're both the same. How are we going to find the answer to their question? Plug it in. Does it matter which equation we use? No, it shouldn't, because they're supposed to be equal. So, pick your favorite one. 2.35 plus 0.25 times 4. This is an easy one, because that's $1 right there. So $1 plus 2.35 makes 3.35. But yeah, it doesn't matter which one you plug it into. You're just going to find the price. Okay, question 12, a line in the xy plane passes through the origin. Okay, so if it passes through the origin, has a slope of 1/7. That means it goes up 1 and over 7. Okay. Which of the following points lies on that line? Well, it can't be 0, 7. That's up here somewhere. 1, 7. Nice try. Because in our minds we keep thinking 7, 1, right? We should think 7, 1. Now I know a lot of people are probably going to graph it wrong, right? They're going to pick 1, 7. 7, 7, way off the graph. They haven't given us a really good bad answer here. But 14, 2 would be the next one, because you go up 2, or go up another one, and then over another 7. You get to that one right there. So, if you can count using your slope, you can get the right answer on that question. Which is equivalent to this. Okay, a lot of times we need a common denominator. What's the common denominator between x plus 2 and x plus 3? Does anybody know the common denominator? Okay, now that's true. I'm not going to argue with her, but I am going to write it differently than she said it. I'm going to write x plus 2 times x plus 3. Now, there's nothing wrong with what she just said. But I'm going to multiply it to the top and the bottom. Now, what happens when I take this thing right here and I multiply it times the first fraction in the denominator? I know the numerator, folks. The numerator, if I just take x plus 2 times and x plus 3 times 1, that's pretty easy. Okay. I'm more concerned about what happens on the bottom there. So when I multiply this times 1 over x plus 2, what cancels out? The x plus 2's cancel out, leaving me x plus 3 times 1. Well, that's pretty easy. That's just x plus 3. And then you see that there's a plus sign. That plus sign goes right here. Then I've got to distribute this to the next one. So this gets multiplied to this thing. Anything cancel out? The x plus 3's, leaving me x plus 2 times 1, or just plain old x plus 2. What do you get when you add these two things together on the bottom? 2x plus 5. Let's look at their answer choices. I know the denominator is supposed to be 2x plus 5. There's only one choice. Using the common denominator, I can get rid of things quickly. That's called a complex fraction. If you're in Algebra 2 now, you'll get to it later. But it's no different than if I said 1 divided by 1/2 plus 1/3. Now, obviously, that fraction's a whole lot easier than the one we were dealing with. What would you multiply this thing by? What's the common denominator? Between the 2 and the 3. They don't have anything in common, do they? Therefore, you have to multiply them together and get what? Woo! Big stuff here. Yeah, folks, 6. You would multiply the top and bottom by 6. Same concept. It's just these are easier numbers to work with and not polynomial terms. Okay, 14. How many of you know that you can change 8 to 2 to the 3rd? I just changed 8 to 2 to the 3rd. Now, you might be asking yourself, why the heck do you want to do that? Well, I want to see if there's a way to combine these, the top and the bottom. What am I allowed to do with those two exponents that I just circled in the red? Multiply, that's 2 to the 3x, right? Over 2 to the y power. Now, what am I allowed to do with the two exponents that I circled in the green? Because I'm dividing by like bases. What am I allowed to do with those? So we don't know? Okay, so if I said 4 to the 5th over 4 to the 3rd, what would you be allowed to do with those two exponents? I mean, are you guys really going to write out 5 of these things? And then write out 3 of them on the bottom? And then sit there and go like this? Is that really what you're going to do? What are you going to do with those exponents? You're going to subtract them. So that gets me 2 to the 3x minus y. 2 to the 3x minus y. Whoa, where did that, I don't know what 3x minus y is. Or do I? It's 12. That's why here's your answer, 2 to the 12th. So we had to do a little bit of algebra, following our exponent rules. Just a little bit of manipulation. Okay? In the FOIL process, when you multiply these two together, which one of the terms over here do you get? When you multiply ax times bx, by the way, that's abx squared, which one of these terms do you get over on the right side? 15x squared. You get the firsts. What does that tell me about AB? What does that tell me about the product of A times B? It's 15. Okay, so that's helpful. At least we know the two numbers multiply together to give me 15. We also know that A plus B is equal to 8. Can you think of numbers that multiply together to give me 15 but add up to 8? Yes, sir. 3 and 5. Okay, so we got 3 and 5. Do we know whether A is 3 and B is 5, or B is 3 and A is 5? Do we know that? I don't think we do know that, right? Now the only way to figure out this middle term, which is the C value, is for us to do part of the FOIL process, the outsides and the insides. So the outsides would be 7ax, the insides would be 2bx. We know that that equals 2cx. Now, what looks noticeably useless in that red equation? Noticeably useless. Because it's in every single term. The x's. So, don't pay attention to this. You're basically dividing everything by that to get rid of it. Now, I like your choices with the 3 and the 5. But C, if you said 7 times 3 plus 2 times 5, what would that value of C be? That would be 31. Now that happens to give away the answer right there, because switching it around and 7 plus 5 times 2 times 3 equals C would give me the 41 value. So, yeah, I don't know what, the 3 and the 5, I don't know which one's which. It doesn't really matter to me. Sorry, I'm going too fast. It's all in the video if you want to go back and eat some food, watch some math videos. It's cool stuff. Lots of videos all the time. Little Netflix, math videos. Okay. 17. Let's see what we got here. Lengths represented by AB. Alright, so AB is the first one. It's 1800. Okay. EB is 1400. BD is 700. And CD is 8. Okay, so we've got everything labeled. AEB. Oh yeah, they got it marked already for us. That's nice. What's the value of x? So if that angle equals this angle, any other angles the same? Come on, geometry people. Any other angles the same? How about the vertical angles right there? Okay. That's enough information to guarantee these are similar triangles. If you, in your mind, need to flip that other triangle around so that you have two triangles that look like this, so if you need to spin that one around so it kind of makes sense to you, that the 700 and the 1400 go together, then do it, if it makes more sense to you. But if you're okay with understanding that you can set up a proportion where 700 matches the 1400, which means that the 800 has to match the x that you're looking for. And so what do we end up with? A little cross multiplication. Now I'm hoping you saw that 700 was half as big as 1400, and so you thought to yourself, I wonder if it's 1600. Okay, it is when you cross multiply that. According to the system of equations above, what is the value of x? Alright? What do you think we should do? Is there a faster way to do the question? I know everybody's thinking elimination, and you're right. Which variable should I eliminate? If I eliminate x, okay, so let's say I do that. Okay, let's say I multiply that by -1, that by -1, that by -1, and then add them together, and I get y equals... Now, this isn't taking a tremendously, large amount of time, right, to get y equals -16. But I didn't get the answer right away. I guess it's kind of... This one I don't think has, like, a super fast way to do it. I mean, because if I plug this back in, right, x minus 16 equals -9. X is equal to what? 7? If I eliminated the y's, would it be any faster? So then I would multiply this by -2, -2, and that one would be positive 18. If I did this, and then added them together, I would get -x equals -7. Is it that much faster? Well, I don't know. Whether you choose to eliminate x or y first. If you eliminate the y's, boom, you go straight to x. That's what they asked for. And we're trying to speed everything up as fast as we possibly can. So, here's a right triangle. One angle measures x. What would you call this angle right here? She has tricked before. What do all the angles of the triangle add up to? 180. Those three angles add up to 180. You got x, you got 90 minus x, and you got 90. Oops, sorry. So if you add those all up, these cancel out and give me 180. Now, not a lot of kids think about 90 minus x. Good old SOHCAHTOA. The sine of angle x, let's see here, we got opposite, hypotenuse. What kind of triangle is this, by the way? This is the 3, 4, 5. Remember I said that triangle, 3, 4, 5, is either going to show up exactly like this or a multiple, 6, 8, 10, 9, 12, 15. So, watch out for those, because that triangle will show up. I don't care that this is a 3, by the way. It really doesn't matter to me. What I care about is the cosine of this other angle. Cosine is the adjacent side divided by the hypotenuse. Well, the adjacent side to the angle I'm dealing with up here is 4. And the hypotenuse is 5. So the answer to the question is exactly what they started with. 4/5. They gave you the answer. As long as you understand the relationship between sine and cosine of complementary angles. Now, had they asked me for the sine of that angle, 90 minus x, then it would have been 3/5. Because I would have had to use the opposite over the hypotenuse from the other angle. Okay, question 20. A is equal to 5 radical 2. We got 2a equals radical 2x. What is the value of x? Alright. So 2 times 5 radical 2 equals the square root of 2x. Okay, so we have 10 radical 2. Hey, do you guys know that you could split this up into radical x and radical 2? If so, what obviously cancels out on both sides? The radical 2's do. So, what do you do to get x by itself? How do you get rid of a square root? You square it. And so now we know that x is 100. Any little advantage or thing that speeds things up for me is good. Now we're going to take a 5-minute break, and then so if there's anything you need me to go back to put up on the screen, I'll be happy to do that. So take a break, stretch your legs, get a drink of water. Restrooms should be open that way as well. So take 5 minutes, and we'll come back. Is there anything I went too fast through? Were there any of those that were really slowing you down? Especially without the machine? I'm glad they weren't. You guys not need a break? Okay. I'll give you 10 minutes this time. Let's see how fast we get through any of the can. So. very difficult here on the first one. Strictly increasing, strictly decreasing. That's that spike in the middle from 40 to 60. Not much you can say about that one. There's no point in which it's flat in the graph or it stays the same. In this picture over here, start labeling what you know. Think about these are corresponding angles. I don't know if you remember that term. These are vertical angles. These are corresponding angles. So you get a connection of transferring that 35 all the way down till it's close to the 2. And then you could say, oh, well, those are supplementary angles, so they have to add up to 180. So I can take the 180, subtract the 35, and get the 145. Kind of the follow the yellow brick road kind of idea, you know. Oh, I forgot 2, evidently. So if 24 is equal to, I can plug in the 24 in the 6, k then would have to be 4, and then of course I put in the 4 with the 5 to give me the 20. On question 4, and if I go through anything too fast, I'm just trying to speed up the things at the beginning here. So I took the 16 over to the other side. It's kind of a funny way to say 10 plus 14, but they did. 10 more than 14 is 24. Take away 16, that gives me 8. At this point, it is not, yeah, I know I could divide by 4, find out that x is 2, and then plug it back in. I think it would be smarter just to multiply by 2 on both sides and find out that my answer is 16. Because they asked me about 8x. And I know that's not a significant savings in time, but whatever I can do to speed this up. And if the only thing I know how to do is find x, then do it. But they didn't ask me about x. Not much I could say about number 5, strong linear correlation. There's only one that has a strong correlation with a negative slope to it, or a negative shape to it like that. So that's the best one you got. I mean, there's kind of a weak negative up there in letter A. B kind of has a positive, maybe even a parabolic shape. C is definitely strong positive. So here in this particular example, we started out with 2 decagrams. That led me to 20 grams. And then 20 grams, if I multiply that by 20, gives me 20,000 milligrams. So just follow the chart around until I got to the final answer. So they multiplied this one, the top one by 2, and the bottom one by 20. Once again, if I go too fast through something, let me know so I can not confuse the crap out of you. So if we need 27,500 solar panels, what unit do these need to be? I mean, if these are tens, then this represents 90, and we're never going to get there. If these are hundreds, then that's 900. If these are thousands, this is 9,000. If these are 10,000s, it's 90,000. Well, it's obviously not 90,000, so I guess my question is, could that represent 9,000 and be realistic? Yeah. That's where we're going to find our value. Is, well, what is it? Right. Okay, there we go. In thousands. What do we know about absolute values? They can't be negative, right? So what is the lowest amount that this thing could be? The lowest amount that thing could possibly be is 0, and you're adding a 1 to it. So how is that ever going to be possible? It's not. Absolute value, The only way this could happen is if the absolute value was a negative number, which is never going to happen. Absolute value is your distance away from 0, and distances are positive, or the least it could be would be 0. So when they say expresses the air temperature, they mean solve for T, which makes sense because all the answer choices are solved for T. And so, of course, all you're going to do is subtract that 1052 to the other side and divide by 1.08. And there's only one like that, which would be letter choice A. And then question 10 goes on to plug in 1,000 for A and force me to solve that. So I can plug in 1,000, right? Negative, what we got? Negative 52 over 1, positive 1.08, which is why we're getting a negative number. And I didn't do this one in my head, so which one is it? Which one? B, negative 48. Okay. Question 11. How many of you solved it the algebraic way by subtracting 3x to one side and adding 3 to the other side? How many of you just started plugging in numbers? Plugged in numbers? Yeah. No, I understand. The algebra side of me wants to subtract the 3x over to this side, giving me 1x, and add the 3 over to this side, giving me negative 2, and then rewriting it like that. The only one that doesn't fit that is going to be this one right here. But that's not what most of you are going to do. Most of you are going to, it wouldn't be too bad to do the algebra on that one instead of plugging in numbers, but most of you will start plugging in numbers to see what will not work. And quite honestly, it's not that bad. The numbers are nice. But I think, so either way, it really doesn't matter. You're whichever you like better. Whether you like the algebra or just plugging in numbers. So, how many of you did something like this? Well, there's 2 different apples that have 3 seeds, and then there's 4 different apples that have 5 seeds, and you just kept adding those numbers together. I hope you did not. I hope you figured out that this bar has 6 seeds in it, this one has 20 seeds in it, this one has 6, 14, and 27. How am I getting those numbers? Like, how did I get that 20 right there? I multiplied the number of seeds times the frequency, the height of the bar. And if I'm trying to find an average, what am I going to do with those red circled numbers? Of course, I'm going to add them together, and we've got 12 apples. So, I don't know, 26, 32, 46, 66, 73. So, 73 divided by 12. Well, that's a heck of a lot close. That's pretty close to 6. Since 72 over 12 is 6. But that's how I would have handled that one. Find the totals of the bars and then divide by 12. Okay. I didn't get to this one yet, but it says, which of the following categories represents 19% of all respondents, survey respondents? What's the total number of survey respondents? Look at the chart and tell me the total of the entire chart. 310. Right there in the corner. What's 19% of 310? What's 19%? When you multiplied it out, 0.19 times 310, don't we get 58.9? I'm hoping that that number right there in the chart is jumping off the page at you. So, males taking geometry. I did not need to go through every answer choice figuring out what their percentage is until I got the 19%. I think it's much faster to figure out what 19% of the total is. Go find it on the chart and answer it that way. Okay, so we've got all these fish lengths. There's an outlier, measurement of 24 inches. Okay, and for some reason we're saying that's an error. Of the mean, median, and range of the values listed, which will change the most if we take that one out of the mix? Now, I know that all three of those are going to change. The median is going to change the least because it's going to move one spot. We know that the median is found by the middle value. So it's going to slide over one place. It may go down one spot. It may even stay the same number. I'm not going to try to figure it out. I could, but it's only going to go down one place. Maybe even land between two. Really, there's no way that they're going to change by the same amount. The average divides everything by the number of values, so there's no way that they're going to change by the exact same amount. So that's kind of a ridiculous answer choice. So it really comes down to mean and range. Now, let me see. How do you find range? Isn't that the maximum minus the minimum? Well, you're dropping your maximum 8 units. We had a maximum minus a minimum of 16. And now we're dropping it to 16 minus 8. We just cut the range in half. Do you think by taking out the 24, we're going to cut the average of all those fish in half? No. There's way too many values that we're dividing by. So, it's definitely the range that's changing the most. Okay, that's that page. 15. What does the C-intercept represent in the graph? The C-intercept. So obviously we've got 0 hours rented. So I've rented this boat for 0 hours and I'm still getting charged $5. What is that? What is that? Yes, sir? Yeah. Everything that you rent is going to have an initial cost. A fixed cost. If you go rent a car, it's going to have a fixed cost and then a per mile fee on top of that. Which of the following represents the relationship between these two? Okay. Well, it can't be either of those two because they don't have what? They don't have the initial value of 5 in them. So the y-intercept has to be 5. It's got to be one of those two. All right, so what's the slope? Do you know how many kids say 3/4? Why do they do that? They count the blocks. But this is 3, and this distance right here is only 1. They trick you with it. Just because of the way they scaled it. So, correct answer C. But they would get a lot of people with that 3/4. That's for sure. The complete graph of of the function f is shown in the xy plane above. For what value of x is the value of f of x at its minimum? Okay, where's the minimum on this graph? I'm hoping everybody would see that coordinate right there and know that that's the lowest point on the graph. Okay? So, most kids are going to choose the value, the answer -2. Okay? Tell me why that's wrong. That's the y value, and what did they ask me for? Oh, they tricked me. They asked for the x value, and the x value happens to be -3. So, a lot of kids bite on that -2 just because they find the point, and then they don't pay attention to what they're asking me for. Okay. In the xy plane, 0, 0 is a solution to the system of inequalities above. That means when you plug 0, 0 in, you get a true statement. So what do you think I should do with 0, 0? What do you think I should do with 0, 0? For both of those inequalities. Plug it in. Yeah. 0 is less than 0 plus a. Well, that's pretty easy. A has to be greater than 0. 0 is greater than 0 plus b. That must mean that b is less than 0. So a is a positive number, and b is a negative number. Okay, so which one of those is true? Positive numbers are bigger than negative numbers every day of the week. And on Saturday and Sunday too. So plugging that in helps me. Food truck sells salads for $6.50 each. And drinks for $2 each. This sounds like linear. Food truck's revenue from selling a total of 209 salads is $836.50. Sounds like a job for elimination to me. I think it'd probably be best if I multiplied the bottom equation by -2, which would be -418, and then add them together. Those would cancel out, giving me 4.5x equals, I'm going to say that's $418.50. So, 418.50 divided by $4.50 gives me x equals 93. Is that what they wanted to know? So for me, the x is the salad. How many salads were sold? Hey, we found it. We did not need to plug it back in to find the other one because they didn't ask me for drinks. They asked me for salads. Did I lose anybody on that? Okay. Question 20. Alma bought a laptop computer at a store that gave a 20% discount off its original price. Okay, so if you're at 100% and you give a 20% discount, what percentage are you paying? 80%. Okay, so we're paying, 80% of the original price. Okay, now I got to be careful here because I think they're labeling P differently, aren't they? The total amount she paid to the cashier was P dollars, including an 8% sales tax on the discounted price. Which of the following represents the original price? Okay, so let's call the original price X. So if we take 0.8x, that's our sale price. How do we then raise this by 8%? What do we multiply when you take a number and you raise it 8%? That's 108%. So what's the multiplier? I know that's real sloppy, but what's the multiplier from this? 1.08. So we're taking that 0.8x and multiplying by 1.08 to find the amount of money that she actually paid. They're calling it P. But they want me to solve that equation for my original price, which I called X. So what should we do to get X by itself? What should we do to get X by itself? Come on, folks. Looks like a lot of multiplication to me. What are we going to do? We're going to divide by 1.08 and 0.8. Oh, I can't write. 1.08 and 0.8. Okay. 21. Dreams recalled during 1 week. Data on the table were produced by sleeps. Group X consisted of 100 people who observed early bedtimes. Group Y consisted of 100 people who observed later bedtimes. If a person is chosen at random from those who recalled at least one dream, so at least one dream would be these people, right? What is the probability that the person belonged to Group Y? Alright, so if we're belonging to Group Y, wouldn't I be adding these together? So 11 plus 68 is 79, and 39 plus, what is that, 155 plus 9, 164, is that right? Did I find a reasonable answer? I did. So let me go back. Any questions on that? I looked for the chart to see where at least one, and then I took Group Y and divided by the total of those two columns. So Group Y divided by the total of those two columns together. If I go too fast, let me know. Annual budgets of different programs in Kansas. Okay, a lot of info there. Just doesn't seem, oh look, there's thousands of dollars. I wonder if that makes any difference in any of these. We'll see. Because obviously there's 3 extra zeros on every one of those numbers. Which of the following best approximates the average rate of change? Ooh, what does average rate of change mean? Do we have a fancy word for average rate of change? Slope, thank you. In the annual budget for agriculture, natural resources, okay, agriculture, natural resources in Kansas from 2008 to 2010. So that's the information I'm focused on. Now, can we simplify this a little bit? Is there any way we could simplify this? Could we do 488 minus 359 over 2? Now, how am I doing that? What am I doing? You said that's slope, right? I don't want to type all those numbers if I don't have to. I'm just trying to estimate. It's multiple choice. It should be pretty obvious. So, what do we get when we take 488 minus 359? $129? And 129 divided by 2? Hopefully you're seeing 64 and a half, which is going to land you right there at that 65 million per year mark. And where did the 2 come from? It's the difference in the years, right? 2010 minus 2008. I'm just doing slope. Difference in the y's over difference in the x's. Nothing more complicated than that. Of the following, which program's ratio of its 2007 budget to its 2010 budget is closest to the Human Resources Program ratio 2007 to 2010? So, they want me to go through here and like 374 over 488. Just can't write. And 2165. Sorry, I'm just not. I should have zoomed in a little bit more than this. I'm gonna run out of room pretty quickly. So 2165 over 3008. Okay, so this one's gonna be here. 14347 over, and maybe I'm making this more complicated than it needs to be. 14716. I'm just trying to go with somewhat rounded numbers. Is there a faster way to do this than this? If there is, I'll be more than happy to. 1468 over 1773. I feel like there should be a faster way. Any of you got a better thought? Because this just seems like plugging and chugging for no good reason. Okay, which ones do we want? Human resources? So that's like 4 to 6, isn't it? This is like 4 to 6. So we need something that's close to 2/3. Boy, that looks an awful lot like 2/3, doesn't it? Is it education? Was 20? Well, you know what? You don't know because I didn't show you. No, that's not it. These are right here. 23 was B. Yep, that's it. It's based on just trying to get a quick fraction. So, me writing all those numbers down was pretty much a waste of time. When I was trying to speed it up and find out, oh, something that looks like 2/3. I hate it when I waste time like that. Speed is the name of the game. Okay. Question? Okay. Which of the following is an equation of the circle? Okay, circles. Just as a reminder, circle equations follow x, well, that's a bad looking minus. X minus h quantity squared plus y minus k quantity squared equals r squared. Hey, it's the good old Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. Alright, now, the center is at 0, 4. Well, guess what? That doesn't help me rule out any of the choices. Because if you look at that, every one of those choices has 0 and 4. Right? X minus 0 squared, y minus 4 squared, Oh, maybe it does. Any of those choices we can get rid of? Why do I know I can get rid of B and D? What's the center of both of those? It's 0, -4. Those have 0, -4 as the center. So, those are out. So I did get it down to at least 2 choices. Now, I'm going to show you a graph here. 0, 4. That's the center. And whoever came up with 4/3, 5. Gee whiz. 4/3, 5. Alright, let me zoom in on this. 4/3, that's 1 1/3. So that's about right there. And then I got to come up here to 5. So there's the edge of the circle. So here's the center of the circle. There's the edge of the circle. So if I can find this distance right here, I have the radius. Well, what do you know? It just happens to be the hypotenuse of a right triangle. Do you know the bottom leg of that right triangle? If this is 0 and this is 4/3, do you know the bottom leg of that triangle? Any thoughts? What is it? It's got to be 4/3. That's right. Ugly, but that's what it is. We went from 4 to 5, so that means this side length has to be a 1. Well, I bet you could do it. 4/3 squared plus 1 squared equals c squared. Or if we want to call it r, let's call it r. Just for kicks and giggles. All right, so what's 4/3 times 4/3? I'll get you started. 16 over what? 9. Okay, this is 9 over 9 for those of you wondering. And if you add those together, what do you get? 25 over 9. So, just remember those situations. Sometimes you think because we have drilled it into your brain, oh, find r, find x. Look at what the question is asking you before you jump to that conclusion. Okay, equation above expresses the approximate height in meters of a ball t seconds after it's launched vertically upward from the ground, with an initial velocity of 25 meters per second. They're kind enough to give me the entire equation. After approximately how many seconds will the ball hit the ground? So they want to know when this thing's going to hit the ground. Do we need the quadratic formula? I mean, we're putting a 0 over here. Could we hit it with the quadratic formula? Yes, we could. However, there is another way. We could pull a t out of this, giving ourselves negative 4.9 t plus 25. Now, if it's factored like it is, then you can set the two factors equal to 0 and solve them. Well, this one's pretty boring. This is the one you're interested in. Negative 4.9t plus 25 equals 0. So if I move that term to the other side, that's 25 equals 4.9t. there was no need for the quadratic formula. It looks a lot like 25 over 5. So I'm hoping that you see that it's 5 seconds. A little bit more than that, but 5 seconds. So, yeah, you could pull out the quadratic formula if you wanted to, but you don't need to. Katerina is a botanist studying the production of pears by 2 types of pear trees. So, is this really pairs of pear trees? Seriously? What a bad joke. Okay, 2 types of pear trees. She noticed that type A produced 20% more pears than type B. Okay, remember that whole 100%? If we go up by 20%, that's 120%. So, she noticed that type A produced 20% more than type B. Based on Katerina's observation, if type A produced 144 pears, how many pears did type B produce? Okay, so what do we get? 144 divided by 1.2. Hopefully you see 120 there. Sometimes going from the words to the equations is the hardest part because you guys know how to do division. I mean, that's not going to be a hard thing for you. I mean, it should be an easy thing. A square field measures 10 by 10. 10 students each mark off a randomly selected region of the field. Each region is a square and has side length 1 meter. No 2 regions overlap. So they've got a 10 by 10 grid. How many 1 by 1 meter squares do they have in this 10 by 10? Well, we took the whole field. And we split it up into all those. I can't even draw 10 of these columns and rows in there. How many different 1 by 1s are in there? There's 100 of them, right? Okay, well, I'm not going to count every single one of these things. We got 10 students. So we send out these 10 students. And they each pick one randomly. And they dig up that section of earthworms and they find out and they count the number of earthworms in their 1 meter by 1 meter square. And they count them and they put them in this data table. Which of the following is a reasonable approximation of the number of earthworms to a depth of 5 centimeters beneath the ground surface in the entire field? Okay, look at those numbers. Look at the number choices that they give you. Now, look up here at these numbers. I don't need you to average them together. What are these numbers kind of, if you had to pick where you think the middle of these numbers are, what's it kind of look like it has to be around? Especially since these numbers are kind of giving the idea away. It's got to be around 150, right? So the average of these numbers has got to be around 150. How many of those were in that square, that 10 by 10? 100 of them. So you take 150 and you multiply by 100. Oops. times 100. What do we get? 15,000? It wasn't that bad of a question. We used the information we saw to kind of help us. Question 28. If the system of inequalities y is greater than or equal to 2x plus 1, okay, so that would be, let's see, I'll see a little bit. Y is greater than 2, okay, so 2x plus 1 would have some sort of slope like this. And greater than, okay, greater than would be shaded like out this way, right, above the line. And y is greater than or equal to 2x plus 1. Okay, then, what's the other one? Since you got it in front of you, what's the other one? Y is greater than 1/2 x minus 1. So that's going to have like a y-intercept down here, and its slope is it greater than or equal to? Just greater than. All right, so the slope is up 1 over 2, so it's going to be more like this. But it's also greater than, so it's shaded above the line. What they ask me for? Which quadrant contains no solutions to the system? 1/2 x minus 1. Okay, so that would be minus 1 and up 1 over 2. Oh. Now I understand. I was like, man, did I graph this wrong? So the final answer, whoops, I'll lock it in place. The final answer is this thing right here. Which quadrant did it miss? It missed 4. I know the individual y is greater than 1/2 x minus 1 did not miss 4. It cut off a little bit of the corner. But when you combine the two inequalities together, they miss quadrant 4. Okay, we'll make 30 our last question here. Which of the following is an equivalent form of the equation in the xy plane from which the coordinates of the vertex? It's extremely important that you understand which form they're asking me. Because I know another one of these forms of this equation that would be useful, but not in this question. They want the one that identifies the vertex. Okay, so what does the vertex look like to you in that picture? 1 what? 1 negative 16. So we're looking for something. Oops, that ain't it. We're looking for something that shows me the vertex is 1 negative 16. So there's obviously the correct answer sitting down there at letter D. I could rewrite this question and make A the right choice. How could I rewrite the question and make A the right choice? What do you see in letter A that's useful to this parabola? See, A shows me something different than D does. D shows me vertex, A shows me what? It shows me the x-intercepts, right? So negative 3 and positive 5, there are the factors that go with that. So if they just rewrite the question, then A is the answer. You've got to pay attention to what they're asking you for. Okay, have a good night. Go get some more homework done. Get all your flex homework done tonight. Then you can sleep in the morning like you want to.